don't think this is going to be a quick sale. I think there'll be a couple price reductions. I think it may even be taken off the market, and somebody will quietly acquire it.
Some places are built with bricks and money, but others are built with dreams. Neverland Ranch was one of those rare places. To the outside world, it was a massive estate filled with a zoo, amusement rides, and a private train moving through beautifully designed gardens. But to Michael Jackson, it represented something much deeper, a chance to escape the pressures of fame and create the childhood he never had. For years, Neverland stood as a symbol of imagination and innocence. But after Jackson's public struggles, legal battles, and eventual death, the meaning of the property began to change. The place that was once created as a paradise slowly became a complicated burden that nobody wanted to inherit.
Jackson's Neverland Ranch in Santa Barbara, California is up for sale for $100 million.
The name Neverland was once associated with imagination, happiness, and a world where dreams had no limits. But over time, that same name began to carry a different meaning. What was once considered one of the most extraordinary private estates in the world became a property that seemed impossible to sell. Potential buyers showed interest, negotiations started, and expectations rose, but every time, the deal disappeared. The asking price continued to fall, yet the gates remained closed, and the property remained untouched. How did a place built to represent magic become one of the most complicated celebrity estates in history? To understand that, we have to go back to the moment the dream began. In 1988, when Michael Jackson was at the peak of his global fame, he purchased a massive piece of land in Los Olivos, California, originally known as Sycamore Valley Ranch. The 2,700-acre property was acquired for an estimated $17 million. But Jackson was not simply buying land. He was creating something far more personal, a place where he could escape the pressures of fame and build the childhood world he never experienced himself. The first transformation was the name. Inspired by Neverland, the fictional world from Peter Pan where children never grow old, Jackson renamed the estate to represent something deeply meaningful to him: innocence, freedom, and a chance to hold on to the joy that he felt he had lost. Michael Jackson's childhood had been anything but ordinary. As the lead singer of the Jackson 5, he entered the entertainment industry at an extremely young age. Instead of a normal childhood, he experienced years of rehearsals, performances, expectations, and intense public attention. The success came early, but so did the pressure. For Jackson, Neverland became a way to create the childhood he believed he missed. It was a place where imagination could replace the demands of the outside world, and he transformed that vision into reality. The ranch became a private fantasy kingdom filled with attractions that seemed impossible for a normal home. There were exotic animals, including elephants, tigers, and his famous chimpanzee Bubbles. There were amusement rides, a carousel, bumper cars, roller coasters, and a private railway running through the property. The estate also featured beautifully designed gardens, a floral clock, artistic sculptures, and a train station inspired by classic theme park architecture. Every corner of Neverland was designed around one idea, creating a feeling of wonder. But the ranch was not only a place of entertainment, it was also a creative sanctuary. Jackson built professional recording facilities and used the property while working on major projects, including albums such as Dangerous and History. Parts of music videos were also filmed there, turning Neverland into both a home and a creative headquarters. For Jackson, the estate represented control over a world where he had often felt powerless. It was a private escape from fame, media attention, and the expectations placed on him. Later, Neverland also became the place where he raised his children, Prince, Paris, and Blanket, away from the constant attention of the public. Behind those gates, Jackson attempted to create the safe environment he never had growing up. For many years, Neverland represented his greatest dream. But dreams built on a massive scale often come with a heavy price. As the years passed, the same features that made Neverland extraordinary also made it incredibly difficult to maintain. The property required enormous expenses, and Jackson's personal and financial struggles began to take their toll. By the late 2000s, the fantasy world he had created was beginning to collapse. Years of legal battles, intense media scrutiny, and financial pressure left Jackson unable to manage the costs of the estate. In 2008, he faced default on a $24.5 million loan that had been secured against Neverland. For the first time, the future of the place he considered his personal refuge was no longer completely in his control. That same year, investment firm Colony Capital stepped in and acquired the debt connected to the property, preventing foreclosure. The move was presented as a way to protect the estate and help stabilize Jackson's situation. But it also meant that Neverland had effectively moved into the hands of investors. The place that was once created as a symbol of freedom and imagination had now become a financial asset. Meanwhile, Jackson had already distanced himself from the ranch. After his 2005 trial, despite being acquitted of all charges, he never truly returned to live there. The property had become connected with painful memories, public judgment, and years of controversy. The once lively estate became quiet. The rides stopped operating. The animals were gone. The gates closed. Neverland, once filled with music and laughter, became an empty reminder of a dream that had changed forever. Colony Capital hoped that a future buyer could give the property a new identity. But they soon discovered that Neverland was not just a piece of real estate. It had become a symbol, one surrounded by fame, controversy, emotion, and an extremely complicated legacy. Then, in June 2009, Michael Jackson's sudden death shocked the world. His passing transformed his legacy overnight. Millions of fans mourned the loss of one of the greatest entertainers in history. But the future of Neverland became even more complicated. The property was later rebranded as Sycamore Valley Ranch. But changing the name could not erase the history attached to it. The dream Michael Jackson created had become something much more difficult to define, a place caught between admiration, controversy, and uncertainty. What started as Michael Jackson's personal sanctuary had now become something far more complicated. Neverland was no longer just a luxury estate. It had become a property carrying years of history, controversy, and emotional weight. For Colony Capital, the challenge was no longer simply finding a buyer. The real question was, how do you put a price on a place that means so much to so many people, yet carries so much controversy? The answer came in 2015, 6 years after Michael Jackson's death and several years after Colony Capital became involved with the property. Neverland Ranch was officially placed on the market. The asking price shocked many people. The estate was listed at $100 million, a number that immediately attracted worldwide attention. It was presented as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a chance to own one of the most famous private estates in modern history. But behind the impressive marketing was a much more complicated reality. The property, now renamed Sycamore Valley Ranch, was no longer the same fantasy world Michael Jackson had created. The famous attractions were gone. The animals had been removed. The amusement rides that once filled the grounds with excitement had disappeared. What remained was a massive piece of land with a complicated past. Although the ranch covered thousands of acres and still had beautiful landscapes, it came with enormous challenges. It was located in Los Olivos, California, a peaceful and scenic area, but far removed from the luxury markets where celebrity estates often command extraordinary prices. Unlike Beverly Hills or Malibu, places known for celebrity homes and high-end buyers, Los Olivos offered privacy and nature rather than fame and convenience. For wealthy buyers, that created a problem. Neverland was too large to function like a normal private residence, too expensive to maintain as a personal estate, and too controversial to easily transform into a public attraction. The property was designed around Michael Jackson's unique vision. Without him, much of its original purpose disappeared. Maintaining thousands of acres required significant financial resources. Beyond the purchase price, any new owner would need to invest heavily in repairs, renovations, and modernization. To many real estate experts, Neverland had become what the industry calls a white elephant, a property that looks impressive but comes with more problems than benefits. The $100 million price tag represented history and fame, but buyers were looking at something else: cost, risk, and reputation. No major buyer stepped forward. No serious offers materialized. The problem was that Neverland's biggest obstacle was never just money. It was the story attached to it. Even during its most famous years, Neverland was never simply a house. It became a symbol. As Michael Jackson faced legal battles and public scrutiny throughout the 1990s and 2000s, the image of the ranch began to change. The same place that was created to represent childhood, happiness, and imagination became connected with some of the most serious accusations surrounding his life. In 1993, Jackson faced allegations of child molestation involving a 13-year-old boy. The case was settled outside of court, without Jackson admitting wrongdoing, but the accusations caused significant damage to his public image. Neverland became part of the conversation because of its connection to the allegations. Then, in 2005, Jackson faced criminal charges in a highly publicized trial. The ranch once again became a central focus of media attention. Although Jackson was acquitted of all charges, the controversy permanently changed how many people viewed the estate. Years later, the debate continued. In 2019, the release of the documentary Leaving Neverland brought renewed attention to the accusations against Jackson. The documentary featured allegations from Wade Robson and James Safechuck, who described their claimed experiences involving Jackson when they were children. The film created a major cultural reaction and reopened discussions about Jackson's legacy. For the public, the name Neverland no longer represented only fantasy and childhood dreams. It represented a much more complicated story. For potential buyers, this created a serious problem. Purchasing Neverland meant purchasing everything that came with it: the history, the headlines, the controversy, the attention. A buyer would not simply own a property, they would become connected to one of the most debated locations in entertainment history. Some ideas were suggested, including turning Neverland into a museum similar to Elvis Presley's Graceland. But unlike Graceland, which is primarily associated with celebration and nostalgia, Neverland carried a much more divided public perception. The challenge was clear. Even if someone could afford the property, they also had to accept the weight of its reputation. And that was something many buyers were unwilling to do. The collapse of the price by 2017, it became obvious that the $100 million asking price was unrealistic. The estate had generated headlines around the world, but headlines were not the same as buyers. Colony Capital eventually reduced the price to $67 million, a dramatic $33 million decrease. But even that major discount failed to attract serious interest. Then came an even bigger reduction. In 2019, Neverland returned to the market for approximately $31 million, nearly a 70% drop from its original asking price. For a property once valued at $100 million, the decline was shocking. The falling price reflected more than just real estate conditions. It represented how dramatically Neverland's image had changed. A place that was once seen as a magical escape had become a difficult asset that few people wanted to own. Fans reacted emotionally to the possibility that the estate could be sold, redeveloped, or completely transformed. Some wondered whether the property would become a luxury development, a vineyard, or disappear entirely. But despite the lower price, the same problem remained. Numbers could be reduced, the property could be discounted, but the history could not be removed. For investors, buying Neverland meant stepping into a worldwide conversation they might never be able to escape. The question was no longer, how much does Neverland cost? The real question became, who would be willing to carry its story? And for years, that answer remained unclear. For years, people kept asking the same question. Was Neverland simply difficult to sell, or had it become a property nobody wanted to touch? The answer started becoming clear when the estate returned to the market in 2019. After the asking price dropped to around $31 million, several potential buyers reportedly showed interest. Conversations took place, possibilities were explored, but none of them turned into a serious purchase agreement. The problem was not just the price, it was everything that came with ownership. For many potential buyers, especially wealthy individuals and corporations, the biggest concern was the attention that would follow. Owning Neverland meant that every headline, every public discussion, and every controversy connected to Michael Jackson would also become connected to them. The story was not going to be, a billionaire purchases a historic California estate. It was more likely to become, someone buys Michael Jackson's controversial Neverland Ranch. And that difference mattered, because buying Neverland did not simply mean owning land. It meant accepting a legacy. The buyers who walked away over the years, several names were linked to the property. One of the most notable was Joe Bamford, a British businessman and heir to the JCB construction fortune. Reports suggested that Bamford had shown interest in purchasing Neverland and that discussions had taken place behind the scenes. However, the deal never moved forward, and he eventually stepped away. No official reason was publicly given. Some believed the cost of restoring and maintaining such a massive property was too high. Others suggested that the public controversy surrounding Neverland made the investment far more complicated than a normal luxury estate purchase. Years earlier, another set of famous names were connected to rumors surrounding the ranch. In 2007, reports suggested that actors Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie had considered the possibility of acquiring Neverland. However, the rumors were quickly denied, and no actual negotiations took place. Still, the fact that such high-profile celebrities were even mentioned showed how much attention the property once attracted. Before the controversy dominated its story, Neverland represented something very different: fame, luxury, and celebrity fascination. But by this point, the situation had changed completely. Behind the scenes, Colony Capital reportedly received different levels of interest from possible buyers. Some offers were considered unrealistic, others may not have matched the property's value. And there was another concern: finding a buyer who understood the sensitivity surrounding the estate. A careless redevelopment plan, a controversial owner, or a poorly handled transformation could create even more public backlash. The challenge was no longer finding someone wealthy enough to buy Neverland. The challenge was finding someone willing to carry the weight of its history. And for more than a decade, almost nobody was willing to do that. But when a property remains empty for too long, people begin searching for explanations. And eventually, the conversation moved away from real estate and into something much darker. The myth surrounding Neverland for some people, Neverland's failure to sell was not simply about money, location, or reputation. They believed there was something deeper. Online communities began describing the estate as a place surrounded by negative energy, bad memories, and unresolved history. Some called it cursed ground. These ideas were based more on emotion and speculation than evidence. Supporters of these theories argued that the property had absorbed years of controversy and pain. The same features that once represented happiness, the carousel, the gardens, the train rides, were now viewed by some people through a completely different perspective. Symbols of childhood wonder had become symbols of a complicated past. Other extreme theories went even further, suggesting hidden connections and secret events surrounding the estate. However, there has been no credible evidence supporting these claims. Still, the rumors continued to spread, especially as public debates about Michael Jackson's legacy intensified. There were also stories about paranormal activity. Some claimed former workers or visitors experienced strange moments at the ranch, unexplained sounds, lights appearing in empty areas, a feeling that something was wrong. Some even claim to have witnessed supernatural events connected to Jackson. Whether these stories were true, exaggerated, or simply created by public imagination, they added another layer to Neverland's mythology. The estate was no longer viewed only as a house. It had become a symbol, a place where fantasy, fame, controversy, and mystery all collided. The final buyer after years of uncertainty, Neverland finally found a buyer. In December 2020, more than 10 years after Michael Jackson's death, the estate was sold to billionaire investor Ron Burkle. But the final sale price shocked many people. The property that had once been listed for $100 million was purchased for approximately $22 million, a fraction of its original asking price. The sale was surprising not only because of the dramatic price reduction, but because someone was finally willing to take ownership of a property that so many others had avoided. However, Burkle did not purchase Neverland as a personal residence or as a tribute to Michael Jackson. Instead, he described it as a long-term investment opportunity, a piece of valuable land with future potential. Since the purchase, the estate has remained private. The gates have stayed closed. The famous attractions are gone. The train station sits empty. The property that once echoed with music, visitors, and imagination has become remarkably quiet. There have been no major restoration announcements, no public reopening, no transformation into a tourist attraction, just silence. An uncertain future today. The future of Neverland remains unclear. Some believe the property could eventually be redeveloped. Others hope it could become a place that preserves Michael Jackson's artistic legacy while acknowledging the complicated history surrounding it. Some think the best option would be to remove the old identity completely and allow the land to become something new. But whatever happens, one thing remains certain: Neverland is not an ordinary piece of real estate. It represents a dream that became complicated, a symbol caught between admiration and controversy, between childhood fantasy and painful memories, between the legacy of a legendary performer and the questions that continue to surround his name. For now, the gates remain closed. The world is still waiting to see what the next chapter of Neverland will be. Because some places are not remembered only for what they are remembered for everything they represent.